Lisa Bennett stood at the massive window of the Galactic Council station, watching the stars drift by. Even after 3 months of space travel, she still couldn't believe she was here. As Earth's representative to the Council, she carried the hopes of humanity on her shoulders. The alien Council chamber was packed with representatives from over 50 different species. Some floated in anti-gravity pods, others sat on specialized chairs, and a few existed as pure energy forms contained in special fields. Lisa noticed she was the only one who could sit comfortably in a regular chair without any special equipment. Representative Bennett, the council leader, a tall, thin alien with silver skin named Zix-427, spoke in the universal translator. "Your species has impressed us with your quick mastery of space travel. However, to join the Galactic Council, all species must pass the Crucible test." Lisa straightened her blue uniform. "We understand, Council Leader. Earth is ready for any challenge." A ripple of what seemed like laughter moved through the chamber. A bug-like alien with compound eyes clicked its mandibles. The last species that attempted the test lost 30% of their testing group. The ones before them lost 50%. Some species were completely wiped out. "How many have passed?" Lisa asked, keeping her voice steady. "None," Zix-427 answered. "That is why we suggest humanity wait a few centuries before attempting it. Your species is still young." Commander Peter Hayes, who had been quietly standing behind Lisa, stepped forward. His weathered face showed no fear. "With respect, Council Leader, we would like to know more about this test." The energy being to Lisa's left pulsed with what seemed like concern. "Your bodies are so fragile. You need constant protection from radiation. Your temperature range for survival is incredibly narrow. Your gravity requirements are very specific. The test would destroy you." Lisa and Peter exchanged a quick look. They had both grown up in Minnesota, where winter temperatures dropped to -40 degrees. They had both served in deserts where temperatures soared above 120 degrees. Neither considered humans fragile. "We would still like to try," Lisa said firmly. The council chamber erupted in concerned chirps, clicks, and various alien sounds. Zix-427 raised all 4 of his arms for silence. "You do not understand. The test takes place on a planet that makes your harshest environments seem gentle. The gravity shifts randomly. Radiation storms are common. Temperature swings of hundreds of degrees occur within hours." Peter couldn't help but smile. "Sounds like a typical Tuesday in Colorado." Lisa quickly turned her laugh into a cough. What Council Leader Zix-427 means is that the environment is challenging, but humans are very good at adapting to challenges. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages, floods, volcanoes, and worse. You cannot be serious about attempting this. A floating jellyfish-like being wobbled in agitation. Even our strongest species failed. "We are very serious," Peter said. "Humanity volunteers for the Crucible test." The chamber fell silent. Lisa could feel hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and consciousness-detecting devices focused on them. They all showed the same thing. The humans weren't joking. Finally, Zix-427 spoke again. "Very well. We will begin the preparation process. But remember, you were warned. May whatever deities you believe in have mercy on your species." As Lisa and Peter left the chamber, she heard the bug-like alien click to its neighbor. "Such a waste of potential." They seemed intelligent too. Peter grinned at Lisa. "Should we tell them about our extreme sports enthusiasts?" "Let's save that surprise for later," Lisa replied with a small smile. After all, we wouldn't want to shock them too much on the first day. Back on Earth, Kevin Dixon sat in his office at the Nevada training facility, studying videos of previous species attempts at the Crucible test. The military strategist had been watching the footage for 3 days straight, and something wasn't adding up. "Dr. Sullivan, come look at this," he called to the xenobiologist who was examining alien medical records nearby. Mary Sullivan walked over, her coffee cup in hand. Notice anything strange about how these species failed? Mary leaned in, watching as a group of tall, graceful aliens collapsed in what looked like a simple sandstorm. They're not even trying to shield their faces, she noted. It's like they don't know the basics of survival in harsh conditions. Exactly, Kevin said, pulling up another video. And here, this species gave up when the temperature hit 90 degrees. They called it, and I quote, unsurvivable heat. Captain Chris Martinez walked in, carrying more data tablets. Wait until you see what I found. The Galactic Council considers Earth a death world. They think we're crazy for living here. Mary laughed. A death world. I just got back from my morning jog. That's what makes this interesting, Kevin said, standing up to point at a wall of environmental readings. The test planet's conditions. They're not that different from Earth. We've got deserts, Arctic regions, high-pressure depths, and low-oxygen mountains. Our planet throws everything at us that their test world does. In the corner of the room, a holographic display showed the current training group. 20 volunteers were running obstacle courses in the desert heat, carrying heavy packs and helping each other over walls. The temperature outside was 110 degrees, and they were still going strong. The aliens think we're going to die, Chris said, shaking his head. They don't understand that we do this for fun. Mary pulled up more data on her tablet. Look at this. Their idea of extreme radiation is what we get on a sunny day at the beach. No wonder they're worried about us. They evolved on worlds with perfect conditions. Kevin started marking points on a digital map. So we train here in Death Valley for the heat, he pointed, Alaska for the cold, Colorado for the altitude, and Hawaii for the volcanic conditions. It's just like preparing for a really intense camping trip. A camping trip that killed other species, Mary reminded him. True, Kevin nodded. But they didn't grow up playing survival games or watching reality shows about people drinking their own pee in the wilderness. The facility's door opened, and Angela Wright, their atmospheric scientist, rushed in. Her eyes were bright with excitement. You won't believe what I just found in the Council's data. They consider rain to be a hazardous weather event. Rain. The room filled with laughter. Chris wiped his eyes. Oh man, nobody tell them about hurricanes yet. Or tornadoes, Kevin added. Speaking of which, Mary checked her watch. The storm survival training starts in an hour. The council observers are coming to watch. Kevin grinned. This should be good. The aliens nearly had a heart attack watching the rock climbing yesterday. Today we're teaching the team how to build shelter in high winds. Through the window, they could see the alien observers in their protective suits, watching the humans with a mixture of horror and fascination. One of them had fainted yesterday when a trainee ate a hot pepper. Should we tell them about the ultramarathon runners? Angela asked with a mischievous smile. Let's save that for when they complain about the long-distance tests, Kevin replied. For now, let's focus on showing them what humans consider basic survival skills. The aliens' recording devices tracked every movement as the training group jogged past in the hot sun, singing cadence songs and carrying heavy packs. To the observers' shock, some of the humans were actually smiling. The holographic display in the briefing room showed a planet that looked like someone had taken Earth's most extreme environments and mixed them together. Angela Wright pointed to different areas on the map as she explained the test location to the gathered team. The testing grounds are here, she said, zooming in on a valley surrounded by active volcanoes. The planet's day is 30 Earth hours long. When the sun rises, temperatures hit 200 degrees. At night, they drop to -100. Daniel Ross, their survival expert, nodded as if this was perfectly normal. So it's like Death Valley and Antarctica had a baby. We can work with that. The alien observers in the back of the room shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a blue-skinned being named Kix, spoke up. You do not understand. The gravity also changes. The radiation levels are extreme. No species has survived more than 3 days. What's the gravity range? Daniel asked. making notes on his tablet. "Between 1/2 and 3 times your Earth normal," Kix replied. Lisa Bennett, who had returned from the council station, smiled. "That's all. Our astronauts train at higher variations than that." "And the radiation?" Angela asked. Kix displayed the readings. The human scientists in the room looked at each other and tried not to laugh. The levels were less than what they got from an X-ray machine. Kix," Angela said gently, "we get more radiation from eating bananas." The alien's translator made a sound like static. "You eat radioactive food." Speaking of food, Daniel changed the subject. "What's the local plant and animal life like?" The new images showed creatures that looked like crosses between Earth's most dangerous animals. Plants with sharp thorns and acid-filled leaves dotted the landscape. More aliens entered the room to watch the humans' reactions, clearly expecting horror. Instead, Daniel grinned. "Nice. Better than Australia." "You have worse than this on your world?" one of the new aliens asked. "Ever heard of a platypus?" Lisa asked. "Venomous, egg-laying mammal that looks like nature was drunk when it made it. And that's one of our cute animals." The training team filed into the room for their briefing. They had just finished a session in the heat chamber, followed by ice water immersion training. They were laughing and joking as they took their seats. "Good news, everyone," Angela announced. "The test planet is basically Earth on a bad day. Bad news, they won't let us bring coffee." The room erupted in groans. "Now that's the real survival challenge," someone muttered. Daniel brought up the training schedule. "We've got 2 weeks until the test. Today we're doing rapid temperature change drills. Tomorrow is toxic environment training. Friday is the gravity chamber." "What about the acid rain they warned us about?" a team member asked. Angela checked the readings. "It's weaker than orange juice. Just bring a hat." The aliens watched in disbelief as the humans treated their deadly test like a camping trip. One of them fainted when someone mentioned they could probably still have a barbecue on the surface during the hot days. Lisa turned to Kix, who was still trying to process humans eating radioactive food. "There's something we've been wondering. Has anyone ever thought to just dig underground during the hot days? Build some basic shelters?" The silence in the room was telling. "Really?" Daniel said. "Nobody? That's like Survival Basics 101. "The ground is too hard," Kix explained. "No species could dig in such conditions." "Well then," Lisa smiled, "wait until you see our mining equipment. And speaking of digging, who wants to explain to them what a subway is?" The humans in the room grinned as their alien observers tried to comprehend a species that would voluntarily build cities underground. They decided to save explaining spelunking and deep-sea diving for another day. After all, they didn't want to cause any more fainting spells. Major Scott Phillips stood at the door of the landing craft, looking out at the test planet's surface. The morning sun was rising, and the temperature was already climbing past 100 degrees. Behind him, his team was doing final checks on their equipment with the calm efficiency of people who had trained for exactly this. "Remember, folks," he said, "this is just like that summer I spent in Phoenix, but with better weather." Carol Martinez, their medic, checked her supplies one last time. "At least we don't have to worry about scorpions here. The local wildlife looks way easier to spot." Frank Turner, the team's engineer, was already setting up their first shelter. The alien observers had told them it was impossible to build anything in these conditions. Frank had just smiled and pulled out the same tools they used for Arctic research stations. "First landing team, move out," Scott ordered. 6 humans walked onto the planet's surface, their boots crunching on the rocky ground. The observation station floating in orbit was packed with aliens watching their every move, probably waiting for them to die. Instead, the humans started working. "Ground's actually pretty good for digging," Frank called out, already testing the soil. "Better than that time we had to build a base in the Rockies." The team had split into their assigned groups. 2 were setting up environmental sensors, 3 were mapping the area, and 1 was collecting rock samples. They moved with purpose, unbothered by the heat that was supposed to be killing them. In orbit, the alien observers were going crazy. They're not even wearing full environmental suits. One alien screamed through the comm. Just those thin cooling suits and helmets. Is that one drinking the local water? Another asked in horror, watching Carol test a filtered sample. They're enjoying themselves, a third one said in disbelief. On the surface, the team was indeed having fun. The lower gravity periods made movement easier, and the higher gravity times were no worse than carrying full combat gear. The radiation that had terrified other species was barely registering on their sensors. "Hey Scott," Carol called out, "remember those hot springs in Iceland? Found something similar over here. After we filter out the acid, it might make a nice hot tub." The aliens monitoring their communications nearly fainted. As the day progressed, the temperature kept rising. The humans simply moved their operations into the underground shelters they had quickly constructed. Frank had even set up a basic air conditioning system using parts from their landing craft. Major Phillips, one of the council members, called down, "Your team must return to orbit. The maximum survival time is approaching." Scott looked at his watch, confused. "We've only been here 6 hours. We haven't even had lunch yet. No species has survived beyond this point." "Really?" Scott looked around at his team. They were setting up their base camp, complete with a small hydroponic garden and water recycling system. "But we just got started. We haven't even explored the night side of the testing zone yet." The sound of alien confusion filled the comm channel. In the background, someone was trying to revive a council member who had passed out when they saw a human taking a quick nap in the deadly shade of their shelter. "Speaking of lunch," Frank said, pulling out their supplies, "anyone want to show our observers how humans cook in extreme conditions? I brought hot sauce. You're going to eat here." The alien observer's voice was filled with panic. "Well, yeah," Carol replied, helping to set up their cooking station. "We always say food tastes better outdoors. Though I have to ask, if no one survived past 6 hours, who built those ruins we spotted in the valley?" The comm channel went silent. Scott smiled. "I think we just found tomorrow's exploration target. But first, let's show them how humans handle dinner and a sunset on a deadly planet." The team gathered in their shelter, sharing a meal, and joking about how this was easier than their winter survival training. Above them, the alien observers watched in stunned silence as the humans treated their ultimate survival test like a casual camping trip. After 2 weeks on the test planet, the human base looked more like a small town than a survival camp. Linda Cooper, their agricultural expert, stood in the underground greenhouse she had built, checking on plants that were already sprouting in the artificial light. "The soil here is actually better than what I had in my garden back home," she told the alien observers who watched through video feeds. "Once you filter out the acid, it's perfect for growing food." The aliens had stopped fainting at every human activity, but they still made distressed noises whenever the team did something impossible. Like now, as Linda ate a fresh tomato from her test plot. Above ground, in the shelter of their base's reinforced walls, Scott Phillips was leading a morning exercise session. The team had set up a running track, and several members were jogging despite the high gravity cycle. "Your species exercises in these conditions?" The alien observer named Kix asked, horrified. "Why waste energy needlessly?" "Got to stay in shape," Scott replied, "doing push-ups. Besides, we're getting used to the gravity changes. Makes it more fun." In the workshop area, Frank Turner had built something that made the aliens even more nervous: recreational vehicles. He had modified their spare equipment into what he called extreme terrain bikes for exploring the valley. "The suspension handles the gravity shifts pretty well," he explained, making final adjustments. "We can cover more ground during the cool periods now. Plus, it's good for morale." Carol Martinez walked in, carrying medical reports. "Blood tests are all normal," she announced. "The radiation levels aren't even worth mentioning anymore. Though I did find something interesting. The team's bone density is actually improving. Must be the gravity cycles, Scott said between exercises. Like resistance training, but better. The aliens watched in silence as the humans turned their deadly test planet into what they called a decent fixer-upper. They had built comfortable living quarters, set up entertainment areas, and even started mapping expeditions to other regions. "We found more ruins today," Linda said, moving on to check her potato plants. "Looks like at least 3 different species tried to build something here. They just didn't think to go underground during the hot periods. Or they didn't know how to handle the acid rain," Frank added. He had rigged up a collection system that turned the deadly rain into useful chemical compounds. "Their loss is our gain. This stuff is great for batteries." The team had even started what they called weekend activities. They had set up a game area, complete with a volleyball court for the low-gravity periods. Some members had started rock climbing on the nearby cliffs, using the gravity shifts to try what they called extreme bouldering. Major Phillips, a council member, called down, sounding confused. "Your team was only supposed to survive here. Why are you building permanent structures?" Scott looked around at their growing base. "Well, we figured since we're here, might as well make it comfortable. By the way, has anyone else noticed that the volcano vents could be used for geothermal power?" Frank's already drawn up plans for a small power station. The aliens fell silent again. They had never considered using the planet's deadly features as resources. Now they watched as Linda planted more crops, Frank worked on his vehicles, and several team members played cards in what they had dubbed the recreation room. "Oh," Carol added casually, "we should mention that we found signs of valuable minerals in those mountains to the north. Once we get the power station running, we thought about setting up a small mining operation. You know, if we're going to stay here anyway." The observation station erupted in chaos as the council tried to process how their impossible survival test had somehow turned into humanity's newest colony project. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting chamber was in chaos. Hundreds of alien representatives argued as they watched the latest feeds from the test planet. Engineer Amy Foster had just finished installing a weather monitoring system that could predict the deadly storms other species feared so much. "This is unprecedented," Zix 427 announced, all 4 arms waving for attention. "The humans have survived for 30 days. No species has ever lasted more than 3. Survived. Another council member clicked its mandibles. "They're building infrastructure. They've started mining operations. They're growing food in poisoned soil." On the main screen, Amy was teaching some junior engineers how to build protection shields for the new construction sites. She had improved on the original designs using materials found on the planet's surface. "We must make the test harder," a floating crystal being chimed in. "Clearly, we underestimated their capabilities." The council agreed. They sent new parameters to the observation team. Increase gravity fluctuations, allow more radiation through the atmosphere, raise the temperature extremes. Down on the planet, Scott Phillips read the new conditions to his team during their morning meeting. The humans looked at each other and smiled. "They want higher gravity?" Frank asked, grinning. "Good thing we just finished the new gym equipment." "And more radiation," Carol added, checking her instruments. "Still less than what we got from that solar flare last week." The aliens watched in disbelief as the humans not only adapted to the harder conditions but seemed to enjoy them. Amy's team used the stronger gravity cycles to test new building materials. Linda discovered that some plants grew better in the increased radiation. The exercise enthusiasts treated the extreme conditions like a new workout challenge. "We're making things worse, but they're getting stronger," Kix reported to the council. "They're using our punishment as training." The council tried again. They released some of the planet's most dangerous predators near the human base. The team responded by studying the creatures, learning their habits, and eventually domesticating several of them as pets and guard animals. "Look at this little guy," Carol said, scratching behind the ears of a 6-legged predator that now followed her around like a puppy. He's great at warning us about acid rainstorms. Amy had even bigger news. She had finished analyzing the ruins they'd found. The interesting thing isn't that other species failed here, she explained to the observation team. It's that they failed because they fought against the planet instead of working with it. She showed them her latest project, a network of underground tunnels that used the planet's natural heat for power, its acid rain for chemical processing, and its gravity cycles for energy storage. The aliens watched in stunned silence as humans solved problems that had baffled their best scientists for centuries. Perhaps, Zix 427 said slowly, we need to reconsider what we mean by survival test. The final straw came when Linda requested permission to bring in more humans, not for survival, but to start a research station. She had discovered plants with amazing medical properties growing in the toxic soil. They want to bring their families here, an alien observer reported, voice shaking. They're calling it a nice fixer-upper with potential. Scott looked over the new test parameters one more time and laughed. You know what this place reminds me of now? Alaska, just with better weather and more interesting wildlife. The council fell silent as they realized their ultimate survival challenge had just become humanity's newest frontier. And the humans were already planning housewarming parties. 3 months after the test began, Lisa Bennett stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. This time, she wasn't alone. The entire test team stood with her, wearing their new uniforms with the planet's name, New Phoenix, emblazoned on the shoulders. In conclusion, Lisa said, finishing her presentation, not only did we pass your survival test, but we've established a permanent research station, started 3 mining operations, and built a working colony. We're already accepting applications from other humans who want to live there. The council chamber was quieter than she had ever seen it. Even the energy beings had stopped pulsing. You didn't just survive, Zix 427 said slowly. You turned our most hostile world into a home. Scott stepped forward, showing images of their growing colony. We've mapped out areas for expansion, found resources nobody knew existed, and discovered that most of the deadly features are actually useful. The acid rain, great for powering batteries. The radiation zones, perfect for certain types of research. And the gravity shifts. A floating alien asked. Best exercise program ever, Carol answered, grinning. We're thinking of starting a health resort. Nothing builds bone density better than natural gravity fluctuations. Linda shared her agricultural findings next. The soil is amazing once you know how to work with it. We're growing foods that could help feed hungry worlds. Plus, those deadly native plants. They have incredible medical properties. The council members looked at each other in confusion. One finally asked, but how did you succeed where everyone else failed? Simple, Amy explained. We're used to adapting. Earth throws everything at us. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, blizzards. We don't just survive. We build cities in these places. Your test planet is just Earth on a slightly bad day. Frank pulled up his own data. We've already had requests from 3 different species who want to learn our building techniques. We're setting up a training center to teach others how to survive there. A training center? The council seemed shocked. Other species want to return to this death world. Death world. Lisa laughed softly. We prefer to call it a challenge world. And yes, once we showed it was possible, lots of species became interested. Turns out, they just needed someone to show them how. The council deliberated for hours. Finally, Zix 427 made the announcement. Humanity has not only passed the test, but redefined it. Earth will now be classified as an advanced survival training center for the galaxy. Your species will be tasked with teaching others how to adapt and thrive in challenging environments. After the ceremony, the team gathered in their new Earth embassy. Through the windows, they could see ships arriving from various worlds, carrying the first students for their survival training program. You know what's funny? Scott said, watching an alien carefully try to drink water without its environmental suit. we still haven't shown them our most extreme sports or survival training. Baby steps, Lissa replied with a smile. Let's wait until they can handle a light rain before we tell them about surfing, mountain climbing, or deep sea diving. Speaking of training, Linda added, my brother just called. He wants to open a chain of wilderness survival schools across the galaxy. Says there's a huge demand now. Carol looked at her medical readings from the latest alien visitors. We should probably wait to show them Earth's spicy foods too. Remember how they reacted to mild pepper? The team laughed, remembering the alien observer who had fainted when they explained hot sauce. Earth's classification as a death world had turned out to be their greatest advantage. Everything after that seemed easy in comparison. Well, Lisa said, raising her coffee cup, here's to humanity's newest job, teaching the galaxy how to embrace challenge and turn survival into thriving. Outside, more ships arrived, carrying species eager to learn the secrets of the humans who laughed at impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn that what doesn't kill you really does make you stronger, especially if you're from Earth.